Okay, welcome to this demonstration of the top platform. My focus here is going to be the users who use the platform in the shop. So it'll be more to do with sort of the execution of things and less to do with configuration. I'll do some follow-up videos that discuss configuration of specific features in more detail, but this is a good overview. First, what I want to do is explain what you're seeing on the screen here. So first, in this sort of first quadrant here, we have tasks, and it's effectively a to-do list. You can click on this button here to get more details about the task, and that can include subtasks. There's some configuration options here, like for example, setting the due date, setting a schedule, changing the title. But basically, it's just a to-do list. And so you've got the regular completion button, and this is sorted by time. If you add a task here, it will add that task for an hour from now, whatever now is, right? So here, like for example, if we do new task, we add that, it added that for just about an hour from now. Here we have alerts. Alerts are basically associated with tasks where the alert function has been turned on. And one can set a lead time, so it could be like 30 minutes in advance. This alert pops up on the screen, and it's essentially warning people to this is a task that's expiring and important. Please address it. And so you can click complete. That just directly completes the task. You can dismiss the alert overall, or you can click view, and it takes you to the task, right? In fact, here is, you can see here's where the settings are. This is the set alert functionality, and this is where you set the lead time. So that's tasks and alerts in a basic sense. Here we have shift notes. So you can create a shift note, and if you pin it, it appears here, right? So the idea there is there's lots of reasons to take notes during shifts, but when you create one, sometimes you want the next shift to see it. So this is pinned for later shifts to see. And here is where we handle checks, and I'll talk about checks a little bit later. I'll talk about that separately. That's what you're just looking at on the screen. Oh, and also please note that you can collapse this sidebar. We'll keep it open so it's easy to follow along, but you can collapse that to give you a little bit more space. This whole thing is built around the concept of a shift, and a shift matches like a shift in the shop. So you can't actually execute most tasks. You can't check off tasks like this. If you try to do that, it'll tell you to start a new shift. So a shift needs to be started in order for most of the functionality to work. So a person comes in at the beginning of a shift, they click start shift, they pick a shift lead. In this case, I'll just pick myself. And then on the side here, we can add other members to the shift, right? So now this shift has all other members. And what's useful is it means that people can come up without logging in and logging out. They can just switch who the person is that's currently using the system. You just tap it, it switches who's the user. Actually shows you right at the top here too. In fact, yeah, you can click there if you want to switch the shift member. And that's important because we want to associate people with tasks, right? So if I'm checked off here, right, or if I'm selected, and then I check off schedule shift as a task, it will associate that task both with me and with the shift. Right, so it's a way of kind of keeping track of who did what, collecting data in that sense. So shift notes are shifts are a key component. Of course, all shift notes are also associated with shifts. When you have a shift open, you can create a new shift note. So you just tap that. You can make them private so that they can only be seen by managers. Otherwise, they can be seen by anybody. You can pin it, as we've seen on the dashboard screen before. So you select a category, write your note, you can add photos, and then submit. So that's shift notes and the concept of shifts and sort of this whole dashboard screen. Next, I want to talk about procedures. Procedures are really just tasks. So let's create another opening procedure, or let's say closing procedure. Oops. Now this is something that probably a manager and admin will do, because you create a procedure, and then the idea is that you can actually create these templates. I'll show you here. You can create a template, and that template will appear here, and then you click use, and it just pops a copy of that up. So a good example of this would be a catering order or a catering plan. The checklist for each catering operation is roughly similar, and so you create a template for one, and then you can always just immediately generate a whole procedure with all the subtasks for that operation. So here, let me just show you. So this, you'll actually, really a procedure is just a task. It's just a task with some extra features, but structurally, feature-wise, it's the same as a task. So I'll click Add Task here, and we'll just say like item 1, add. Let's do another one, item 2, add. Right, and so we can just keep adding the items to the checklist that compose this procedure. We can also drag and drop here to move the order around, and these, of course, each have their own subtask or their own details because they are really just a task, and we can add subtasks there. So a subtask can have subtasks, and this is true of all tasks everywhere in the system. With a procedure, the idea is that you can create these repeatable templates. We also label them as procedures so that that's clear. So for example, if we set a due date, let's set the due date for today, and oops, I refreshed. Let's set that so that the time is now. Perfect. So if we go back to dashboard, we can see we've added this item and it's labeled procedure. Right? So that's what a procedure is. It's really just kind of a repeatable package of tasks. We have shifts, which is where the information goes when we, if we want to see all of the stuff that was associated with the shift. This is the shifts sort of historically. It shows all the tasks that were completed, the ones that expired during the shift, who was involved in the shift. This is sort of the history. This is the current shift right here. So if we click this, we can see, so for example, shift notes. Let's add, this is a shift note, and we click submit, and so we can see the shift note here. We can see who it was submitted by. This weird username here is just is a result of my testing situation, but normally it would show the submitter's name, really the team member's name. The controls, pinning it as an alert, setting a category, that's all here. Obviously, whether it's private or not here because that's sort of permanently set. Importantly, if we submit a change, it keeps a history and it shows who submitted that change. So every change to the note will appear here so that you can kind of maintain a history of that note. And then there can, of course, be multiple notes. There's just one in this list here. So that's shifts and shift notes. Checks is the final thing that I want to review within this video. And a check, the concept of a check is it's a momentary collection of a particular piece of information. The most obvious example of this is a temp check. So here we have a temp check that's already been configured. And how you configure these things, how you associate them with equipment, that will be the subject of a later video. But what happens here is there's a schedule. In fact, here, we don't have any immediately upcoming checks at the moment, but so these are upcoming, but we don't have any that are like immediately relevant as defined by, so basically what happens is you set a schedule, the schedule sets a due date for each successive check, and when those checks are nearing due, they appear on the screen. So here, let's set the next check for this one because this one doesn't have any running right now. We click that. Let's see, that's the current time. So let's set that. It should set it. No, I need to do this here. Let's do this. So wait, first let's save the schedule. So close this. So this is a schedule that defines when the checks appear. Again, subject for a later video. And then what we see here, this will show us exactly when the next one is. And you can modify that time if like a check needs to be changed. Generally, you won't need to do that. But what's important for the user is, in fact, actually, so this one's set here. Let's change, just so you can see, what time is it now? It's 10:50, it's 10:58. This one, okay. So we've reset the check independent of the schedule. The schedule is still the same. We've reset the check to be due now. And so there's a 2-minute time frame in which you can submit. That time frame is a configuration, right? So maybe it's more like 14 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. But the point here is this will appear on the screen when the check is due. And all you do is when you see it on the screen, in fact, we'll show it in dashboard here. So it also appears, this is the checks quadrant in dashboard. It appears on the screen and you go and you fill it in. And I don't know what we've configured as the appropriate range here, but let's say 38 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature we want to enter. Click submit. So that failed, which means it was not within the range that we had specified. And so according to the configuration, that can pop up again as a failed check because it means you now need to go and conduct the check again within some period of time. Again, it won't always be 2 minutes. It just depends on how it's configured, and 2 minutes is an easy way for me to demonstrate how this works. And of course, you can see the upcoming checks here. In the case of certain, like what I call blind checks, 2 different users need to submit the information for the check to complete. That's a detail thing. We can worry about that later. But the point is you can see upcoming checks here, and then you can see the ones that are immediately relevant here. Finally, I want to show you the screensaver functionality, and if we do it quickly enough, then we'll get this extra. We'll get to see what checks look like. We'll set this to 3. Obviously, that would be a very short time frame, but in 3 seconds, this screensaver pops up. It deselects whoever the currently selected user is, so that anyone who walks up after the screensaver's turned on, we'll just select who they are. So we click that. I've selected myself. And you can just actually submit a check right from the screensaver screen. And so that it reset again because I only have it set to 3 seconds. So the important information, checks, alerts, and the ability to set a shift note. You'll notice the text is also a lot bigger so that you can see this screen from far away. And so the most immediate stuff, the most important stuff, walk up, select the user, submit. Or you select the user and just click out of it, and now you are the user that's selected, right? But let's remove that because it's too quick. That is, so you can see this is what happens when it's expired. Sometimes, depending on configuration, it will remove it from the screen, which it just did, or it will leave it on the screen, depending on what kind of check it is. So we can see expired ones here. This is the one that failed today. Here are completed ones. This is the one that we just entered, for example, the 38 Fahrenheit. So it's a history of those, and the live ones here. So just to draw the finer distinction, tasks are like what you would find on a to-do list. Checks are specifically periodic requests for information. And what that information is and what the parameters of it, like what the appropriate range of temperatures is, that's all configured in advance. So it's really just for collecting information. We have shifts. Shifts are critical because we associate all the information with shifts. We have team members, which are the person using the device right away and does not require logging in and logging out. We have shift notes, which you can pin, and we have alerts. I think that is all of it. There's also a nice little refresh button here if you're using this as an app. Yeah, I think that is a full overview of the top platform.